Hello everyone. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional graphic designer and tarot deck enthusiast and illustrator. And Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and today is no exception to that. Before we get into our live stream and before we jump back into the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, there are a couple of ways that you can support this channel, this stream, myself as an artist. The first, easiest, quickest, and fastest way to do that is by hitting the thumbs up button. If you've already done it, I appreciate you. So don't forget to say hey in the chat if you're watching this live. Another way that you can support me as an artist and also get art that you like that I create, you can visit my website, blewisarts.com. On it, I'll have all kinds of t-shirts and canvas prints and ebooks and all kinds of goodies. Everything just about ships out next day. So if you order today, you'll get it shipped out probably Monday or Tuesday or so, depending on the time of day that you order. Canvas prints are the only thing that I do not ship out right away. Those are made to order and those take about a week or so to get out to you. So if you want to support me, those are a couple of quick ways that you can do that. Whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. So let's jump in. Hey PL, I see PL in the chat. So good to see you. I'm hoping that you all are doing well this Sunday afternoon. So today we're going to pick back up with the Three of Swords. Now we've so far worked on tightening up the sketch of this. I think last Sunday we tightened up the sketch. We also laid down some flats. Today we're going to work on details. I'm probably going to start with the skin and then we'll just sort of work our way through this particular card. So I hope you guys are doing well. This week has been a pretty good week, a little bit better than it had been in weeks prior to. So I think things are shaping up a lot better and I am happy to be here, of course, working on my favorite thing in the world. Before we get started, I am working in Clip Studio Paint. I am working on a Huion tablet. With that comes my stylus pen. I also wear a glove that helps me sort of slide across the screen, and I'm going to be working on this in real time, which means that if I make a mistake, you guys will have an opportunity to see me do that. And but we're just gonna roll with it. So today we're going to be working on the skin. I do have an idea for the skin, specifically the color of the nails. So just in case you missed the last couple of episodes on the Three of Swords, or the last episode, this card is about heartbreak. So I wanted to illustrate that by putting sort of a heart-shaped pincushion in the hand of whoever this character is, and I wanted this person to be squeezing the hell out of this heart. Right? I wanted it to feel very suffocating. I wanted this to take up a lot of space within this card. So if you followed along for a while, you may notice that this particular image takes up so much more of the space than our normal images do. And that is on purpose. I wanted this to feel like a very intense, very suffocating, very hard feeling card. And so in laying out the composition for that, that was something that I wanted to keep in mind. Now I did pose for this card because typically I work with references. I am a reference queen. I am not. There are some things that I can draw from imagination. Faces is one of those things, but I am team reference because a good reference makes all the difference to me in the world, between getting your anatomy right, getting all of the odds and ends and the bits and pieces and things like that right with your composition. So I shot a reference for this. Now I used my hand and a pair of wool socks to represent the heart, because initially I wanted to do an anatomical heart. So I was really gonna go dark with this. I was really gonna go dark. I was going to do an actual heart with like blood and all of that, but I dialed it back a little bit and decided to go with a pincushion, which I think works really well. And I think it also makes this feel like the heartbreak is part of some sort of ritual, right? So we're doing that. Now there is a fashion designer by the name of Michelle LeMay, I think is the way that you pronounce her. I like her vibe and I like her nails, so I'm going to be using the black paint on her nails as a reference as we work through this card. Now of course this is an African American deck, but I do pull references from all over the place because I get inspiration from all over the place. So we're going to use Miss Michelle as a reference just for her sort of like the black on her fingers, for just the vibe that she gives, right? I think it fits this particular card. All right, so I have all of my layers labeled, and the layers panel is going to be over to our right hand side. In it I have every part of this laid out in a flat, and then on top of that we'll add layers as I see fit in order to add details. So we're going to work with the skin. Before I do, I am going to clean up a little bit of the heart, because the heart layer is on top of the skin. And again, I am working in Clip Studio Paint, so this is just my digital painting program of choice. There's no rhyme or reason as to why I chose Clip Studio. It's just an easier transition from what I was used to. And we're going to see if I can, there we go, and see if we can get the eraser going. I'm just going to clean up some of this cleaning up some of the layer that's laying on top of the skin, so that when I go in to add these details, I'm not necessarily adding them. I'm adding them where I would like to add them. So we're just gonna clean it up just a bit. Now, flats is a step that I take when I want to make sure that I'm telling the proper color story. So let's say, for instance, I'm trying to figure out what color vibe I want to set, or what tone I want to set for this particular image, or for any particular image. What I will do is lay out flats. Flats will allow me to sort of evaluate the colors that I have. It will allow me to establish those baseline colors, and then on top of that, all I have to do is add details. So this helps me save a lot of time down the line. It also helps me again to establish what colors I would like to add to this particular. Now, they may change as I go, but this gives me the sort of the baseline look. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to clean up this particular finger, her pinky finger here, get some of this red out of the way, and we will make everything look great. So again, if you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. So this project is coming along. Now, I am currently doubling up on the card. So if you caught some of the midweek streams, to bring your own project streams, I'm actually working on the Three of Pentacles, and that particular card is coming together really well. It's coming together really, really well. And I'm really happy to sort of be making progress in that way, because I think this is card number 36, and I believe the Three of Pentacles is card number 37. So we're not quite halfway there, but we're getting there, right? We're getting there slowly but surely. My goal is to have this bad boy. I wanted to have it done by the end of the year, but we're going to see how that goes. So next year at the latest. I think everything really is happening in sort of divine timing. And I kind of got to thinking about, if this card, or if this deck if I were prepared to have it printed now, I would be running into the trouble with the tariffs, right? So the tariffs are like an extra tax that is put on items that are manufactured overseas, specifically, I believe, in China and other places. And with that would sort of affect the cost of this particular project. So I think that just me not being done and ready to print is a little bit of a blessing in disguise. So I'm hoping, my prayer is by the time that this deck or this project goes into print to be manufactured, that all of that will be sorted out, but we shall see. Now, what I'm going to do is go back to my hand reference, because I'm going to use sort of the color of my own hand and fingers to sort this out. And again, I do want her fingers to be black, but for the time being, we're going to work on her wrist, and then we'll work our way up. Now, the original Three of Swords card features a heart, 3 swords, and then there are clouds and rain and things like that. I don't necessarily want to have the clouds and the rain in the background, but I was considering adding sort of a cloud tattoo. So we'll play with that. I don't know if we'll play with that today, but we will play with that at some point as we create this card. I don't believe this one is going to take me very long to do. There are not very many components in this. So what I'm doing is just selecting the skin layer. I am going to go to a brush, and I think I'm just going to go with my regular round brush, and I'm just going to add just a little bit detail, a shadow, because of course we are looking at this. Her wrist is sort of beneath the heart, of course, and then we also want to add a little bit of dimension. Now, of course, this is I keep saying of course. Now again, I think this is going to be a relatively easy card, simple card to illustrate. I think the only hiccup I can foresee me having is this index finger, and I had a tough time drawing in and making sure I was having like the nail proportions right, but we'll work it out. We'll make it do what it do. What I'm doing now is taking my smudge brush, and this is a smudge brush that I got from the artist Eric Anthony. I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller because it's giving me too much texture. But this will allow me to have some texture as I sort of blend colors and make this look the way that I want to look. So I'm laying the foundation of her skin, and then I will come back a little bit later and sort of add the cloud tattoo. And it's not necessary, but I do want to have a little bit of a nod to the original source material, even though this isn't necessarily a clone card. And by clone card, meaning I am not just redrawing the source material in my in my own style. I am giving it my own unique story, and I think doing that makes it unique. I think that's important when it comes to creating a tarot deck. You do sort of want to if you're into it. It's up to you, right? The artist, it's up to the artist. But I do think it is nice to be able to sort of put yourself within the art, or put your own sort of spin on the interpretations of the cards. And so that's what we're establishing here. And again, I don't think this is going to take too long to do. But here in a moment, for those new viewers here, I will allow you, or not allow you, I will show you what the Cosmic Gateways looks like so far. Again, we have about 35, 36 cards done. So we're a little less than halfway, and we still have quite a bit more to do. But I am really excited to do it. I always look forward again to these Sundays, because it's a lot of fun for me. It is. So I think what I would like to do is, as I create this sort of black texture, I think what I'm going to do is use an actual texture brush. And I did this in a portrait that I did back in October, where I created a portrait with a man who was wearing face paint. And so the way that I made it look like that it was actually painted on is that I gave it, of course, the base flat color. Maybe I'll show you what that looks like. Let me show you that picture. So I gave it a base flat color, and then within that base flat, I painted on top of it so that it had this sort of texture like it had been sponged on look, right? So I'll show you what that looks like, and then what we'll try to do is sort of replicate that texture and that technique in this particular card, because I want this to feel like she's painted her hands. I do want it to feel very dark again, somewhat wicked, even though I don't know. I know a lot of people tend to read Michelle LeMay's look as wicked. I've seen lots of people call her a witch. I don't know what she is, but I do like her vibe. I do like her style. And so I'm going to borrow from her this sort of, painted on look, right? So I'll show you an example of this in action. And then what we'll do is try to mimic this sort of technique on her fingers. So as soon as it opens, we'll do that. But in the meantime, while that is opening, I'll go ahead and show you what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. For those of you who are new here, may not be aware, may not have seen all of the cards that are included. Again, we're just a little less than halfway done with this particular deck, right? The idea behind this is to create sort of a introspective sort of self-portrait of cards, but it leans into Afrofuturism and sort of the idea of possibilities, because a lot of the decks that I had run into as I was selecting the decks when I, got back into tarot, because I started at 16. When I got back into tarot, I was having a hard time finding decks that I could connect to. And I think that when it comes to spiritual tools, it's important to see yourself in. And as someone who is always okay, if I don't see it, let me go make it. Definitely wanted to use this opportunity to make the thing that I wanted to see. So if you're in the sort of area where you're looking for something, whether that is a story to be told, whether that is a movie to be created, whatever it is, music, whatever your thing is, and you're not seeing it produced in the market, sometimes you have to be the person to produce it. All right, so that is the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, this is an image that I created where within this, the base color is this sort of skin color, but I was able to use this opaque chalk brush to create the look of face paint, right? So I want to do something very similar when it comes to the hands of our Three of Swords character, because if I were to go back, I want to see if it'll allow me to show you what the time lapse looks like. If I were to show you sort of the baseline, he starts off with a brown base color, just like we do with our fingers in the Three of Swords, and then on top of it I added sort of the white face paint structure, and it peeks through the white, so you're not getting a stony white, you're getting something a lot closer to a flesh tone, or a lot closer to sort of like makeup, and I think that gives you a really nice look. So we're gonna try it out. It's been a while. I think I created this image in October of last year, so it's been a few months since I've done this, so we'll see if it works. It should, and then we'll go from there. So it's taking a little bit of time to open up. If it doesn't open up soon enough, we'll cancel it, and then we'll get on back to our card. All right, so let's see if it'll show for me. There it is. Okay, so as you guys can see, his skin color starts off as a brown color, and then eventually we get to a point where we are having sort of this whitish painted color. Let's see if it'll show. Maybe not. There it is. So the white painted color on top that creates that face paint look. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna close this out just so we can free up some space, and then we'll get back to it. So that's sort of the idea. Now I don't want to go extremely dark yet. I kind of want to go with a dark-ish gray, and then we're just going to sort of lay this color in, and then I'm going to take my reference image of me holding the stocks as sort of a guideline to see where the folds and the shadows and the highlights and all of that goes into play. But I love how this lady, I don't know what it is about this woman, maybe that is on purpose, that she has such a alluring vibe to me. But I really like her. I like her style, and so I wanted to, when I was creating this image, she was sort of the first person that came to mind when it came to creating this sort of painted dark finger filling or finger paints. And so I want to add that in it. I don't know if that's henna. I don't know if that's oil. I don't know what the heck it is, but I do like the way that it looks. So we're going to go back some, and I'm going to pull from this reference, and then I'm going to add where the shadows and highlights will be. So right now this is a neutral gray. I'm going to go a little bit darker, and we'll start to plug in some of these darker tones like so that we still have the brown peeking through for the skin color. So it again looks like face paint. We can make the nails nice and shiny, but everything within the fingers, we sort of want that to feel like, I just want it to feel like a ritual. I do. I want this to feel very very dark, right? Because that's how heartbreak feels. It feels like we're at the behest of someone else. We feel like, we're a victim of this circumstance. And it feels like someone is squeezing your heart, relentlessly, and sort of not letting up. So that is the feeling that I want to channel in this particular card. So we're just going to use this chalk brush as a means to get there, right? To get that nice hand painted look. And we still, of course, want to show this skin color in here a little bit. And then we'll go from there. So yeah, we're still a long ways away from being done with this deck. With this project, it's sort of broken into parts, right? So although you guys have been with me since, I think, started this project 2019, November 2019 is when I finished the first card. I started streaming and sharing sort of the live process of creating this deck June 30th of 2024. So we're almost at a year streaming, which is nice, almost there. So you guys have sort of watched me go through this process, but the illustrations, which is what you guys get to see, is only a small piece of a much larger puzzle. So with that, if we were to break this project into parts, there is a book that goes with this. There is going to be a little white book, which is just your regular guidebook that will come with this. There will also be an additional book. Now, the additional book, I'm not really sure whether or not I'm going to launch it at the same time. That might be something that, because it's a whole thing in and of itself, right? But it will come with a little white book that is your normal sort of guidebook. And so I will have to write that. I will also have to edit that and lay it out, create the design layouts for it. I will also have to create the cover for it, right? And then we have the packaging design, and also sort of getting the shipping and getting it manufactured. And so it is a whole thing. But the illustrations is sort of the biggest part of that. One of the saving graces I found, of course, is to create in batches. That helps me sort of stay organized. But also, I write my interpretations as I create them because it's fresh on my mind. So, for instance, the Three of Cups that we worked on this last series of live streams, over the last like 10 to 12 live streams, that was something that I was able to go ahead and write the interpretations for right out. And that helps out a lot. It helps out a whole lot because it's less work to do down in the end. I also like to prepare the files for print as I go, so that it's not 78 images. I have to like color correct and do all of that all at one time. I just sort of do it as the cards are getting completed, and that helps out a lot. So I found little sort of systems and things, sets, different things in place so that I can make the creation of this a lot easier, because right now I'm a one-woman show. I don't foresee me being that way forever, right? But for this particular project, I am sort of doing everything by myself. And so I want to make life as easy as I possibly can for myself as I sort of make my way through this project. Now, I'm going back and forth between references. I'm using my hand reference just to sort of see where the bends and the folds and things like that are, so that I can add flesh tones and highlights and shadows where they go. But I'm also using Michelle's pictures, because of course she has the black finger paint, and that kind of allows me to see how it looks, right? How it looks on the nails, how it looks on her skin. So one thing that I'm noticing is that in the black and white picture, the black on her nails specifically look very matte. I was on my way to make this look very shiny, and by doing so, I was going to add highlights and things like that. Now, whether or not I keep it that way or not, I'm not sure, because on the second reference, the nails and things look a lot more shiny. So it's just a matter of sort of picking a direction and going with it. But the main thing that I'm paying attention to is how the paint, and I'm zooming in on it, how the paint shows up on her skin, right? So how it looks, how the wrinkles of her fingers look. Looks like she has some tattoos and things like that underneath the finger paint. So that's sort of what I'm paying attention to, and then that is what I'm trying to replicate in my person that I'm creating. So that is what I'm doing. That is sort of how I use references. Sometimes I'll find a reference that matches the exact same thing that I want to draw. A really great example of this is the hermit, who is the man who is meditating under a tree. I was lucky enough to be able to find a man meditating under a tree. I just changed it slightly so that I wasn't copying the exact reference. Of course, I created my own face, and I think the man that the reference came from was sitting on a bench or something like that. I seated my guy in the grass. So there are times where I get extremely close to the reference, but for the most part, when I'm looking for references, what I'm doing is sort of looking at components of an image, right? So when we were painting the Three of Wands, for example, I had various references of desert scenes, and I was able to sort of piece together elements of that image in order to create something new. And that's sort of how I approach it. So for instance, again, with Michelle's picture, Michelle LeMay's picture, what I am doing is paying very close attention to the way that the paint is on her skin, right? As opposed to trying to replicate her exact look, because her nails are shorter. I'm going for more like a stiletto, very creepy, witchy look. Whereas she's not necessarily giving that exact image, right? So when we're looking for references, unless you're studying a reference, you don't necessarily want to copy exactly what you're seeing. It just sort of depends on your intention. It sort of depends on your end game and the goal that you're trying to reach with the image that you're creating. So I'm going back now to my picture here, because where I have a highlight underneath the thumb, when I'm looking at my reference of my actual hand, there's a shadow there. So I want to make sure that I correct it, but we do want to add a highlight, because a slight highlight anyway, because this nail sort of sticks out from the finger, right? Your nail sticks out from the finger, and there is a natural highlight that occurs. So we want to sort of balance that out a bit. Want to make sure I'm getting it the way that I want. And again, I want some of her brown skin to show through a bit, and then add the black paint. Now, how dark I go with this is sort of up in the air. We'll sort of experiment with it and play with it and see where it goes. I just want to make sure that I am getting the bends and the folds and all of those types of things figured out, and as close to my reference, my actual hand reference as possible, because that'll sell the idea that this hand is gripping just like it is in the picture. Alrighty. So I'm just picking up color and I'm just moving it around. Again, I'm not going for perfection yet, right? I do want to give myself a solid foundation, and so that is what I'm after in this particular time. Again, I do want some of this skin color to peek and bleed through a bit, so that it looks like maybe this paint is fading just a little bit. But I do like the sort of witchy vibe that I get from this picture. I like the fact that there are highlights and things like that, so I can add some of that into my image, as long as it matches and makes sense. So something like this. and just play with it. A lot of the times what will happen with me as I create is, because I'm looking at it, of course I'm very serious about what I do, right? But because I don't take myself too seriously as I'm creating, I'm not necessarily striving for perfection initially anyway, it allows me to make happy accidents, right? And so with these happy accidents, I can, place color with no sort of rhyme or reason, or without the restriction of I have to get this right? Without that particular mindset. And that allows me to create moments within an illustration that I may not have gotten had I not been a little bit, had I been more restrictive about the way that I approach the image. So again, we're just moving things around. And this finger is the one that I had sort of the most trouble articulating. So we'll sort of play with it a bit. But so far it's looking pretty good. Now I do see that I can add a little bit. What I'll do before I go into that, what I'll do is I will turn off my sketch. And this will allow me to see where I can improve, right? Because sometimes when I have the sketch on, it gives me a little bit of a false read because all of the details are drawn in, but I do not leave the sketch active. So when I turn off my sketch, that allows me to see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be tightened up, and that sort of thing. Gives me a little more clarity, right? So this is without the sketch. This is with the sketch, right? So this is without, and this is with. Now what I am noticing as I turn it off is how angular the fingers are, the joints, right? Looking very angular. So we don't necessarily want that. I'm going to go into my heart layer because I did erase a little bit, and I'm going to put some of that back. So that it looks like her fingers are sort of digging into this cushion a little more dramatically, like so. And then we'll go back to our fingers and we will soften up some of these edges, right? And this came from me doing the lasso tool. So when we were laying down flats, of course, I show you guys a couple of ways to do that. One of the ways that I like to do is to hand paint everything in, right? So I hand paint the shapes in and things like that. But sometimes I'll use a shortcut, which is to do a selection and then the fill. But because of the type of lasso tool that I use a polyline, which gives me very sharp lines. I get very angular results, right? So we have where my finger isn't very angular. There's a soft bend to it, right? When I use the lasso selection tool, it gives me a very angular look. So I'm just going to go in right quick and soften this up, and then we will go from there. So yeah, this is my dream project. I have been at this for a very long time. In the beginning, I think because I started at the end of 2019, the bulk of the work that I did was sort of in 2020. Of course, everything was shut down, so I didn't have anything else to do except right, work on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. As 2021 and 2022 picked back up, I was getting a lot more projects, and as a result of that, I wasn't really spending as much time developing the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. By the time 2023 came around, I think I only did like one card because I was extremely busy. So those sorts of things kind of have slowed down the process of finishing this deck. However, now I'm deliberately putting aside time to work on it, right? I am like making a point to do that. Now, as I'm looking at this I'm looking at this on my second monitor so I can kind of zoom out on it, right? Can look at it from a zoomed out position. It looks like bird talons. So we're gonna work this out. I think what I will probably do is have the black bleed into her skin some kind of way. I do want more of her skin color to sort of peek through. I think that will kind of mitigate this bird talon look. I don't know, but we're gonna make it work because I'm sold on this idea of having these like black or sort of hinted fingers, but it does is very much giving bird talent. So we'll work it out. Again, I'm not striving for perfection. Sometimes that kind of thing will happen. Again, you have these sort of happy accidents, but by the end of it, I guarantee you it's going to look exactly the way I want it to look. So I'm going to backtrack a bit because I don't like that. What I'm going to do is we'll probably go a little bit deeper and darker with some of the shadows, and I'm going to actually go to her black and white image because I think I'll get a better feel for how this is showing up on her skin. So we'll do something like this. Of course, with our sketch off. And then what I will do is go ahead and make these nails shiny. And of course, it'll probably still look like talons. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because of course I wanted this to look like claws were digging into this heart. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Once I add sort of the light highlights and shadows into the pincushion, it'll make a little bit more sense. So that's sort of the trade-off for working on one part of the image versus working on the whole thing at one time. But again, at the same time, I'm not necessarily striving I'm not necessarily striving for perfection. I am just sort of laying down a foundation so that I can come back and tighten it up a little bit later. So it looks like this needs to be cleaned up just a bit here, and we'll come back and fix that a little bit later. So I am just sort of paying attention to how dark it gets in her fingers, and it seems to get extremely black, right? So we might push it, and then what we'll do is lighten this up so that, there we go, so that the black looks as black as we need it to look, right? You sort of have to fool the eye a bit. Like so. And then of course I can always clean up the shapes, because I remember that when we were setting up our flats, we were doing it in, you know, of course our layers, we were doing it stacking the image, right? And so the heart is a little bit on top of the skin, so wherever I need to clean it up, then I'll just go through and clean it up. And we'll do our best to articulate the areas that we want to articulate. But again, we're not trying to be like extra perfect or extra neat about anything right now. Just sort of extending the flats, if you will. But one thing I am noticing, just sort of looking at her fingers, is that they are evenly dark, which is interesting. That might just be due to the lighting of the images. So I'm going to select again the entire hand, and we'll clean this up and then just add nuance to it as we go. So again, if you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here and witnessing this with me. Depending on how this comes together in the next few minutes. Oh, I am doing the wrong thing on the wrong layer. All right, we may not be here long. Or what I could do is turn the music on and go into full concentration mode. We shall see how that goes. But I do want to again make sure that I'm adding sort of a little bit of her skin color in here, and then we'll work it out. But this is a very interesting lady. I don't know much about her. I see her come up in a lot of the groups that I'm in where people are trying to figure out whether she's a witch or not. I don't know. I like her though. Something about her I really like. I don't know if it is the freedom to sort of be herself. I think that's really what it is. I really do. I think it's because she does not seem to care much about the way people read her, right? And by all reports, she's a sweet lady, right? She just looks like a witch in the woods, and I like that. I like it a whole lot. So when it was time for me to sort of draw these fingers in, thank you. PL says I like her. Yeah, I like her. I don't know what it is. It's something about her. I want to be her when I grow up, right? Or just not necessarily her, but just sort of express the amount of freedom that this lady seems to express just by being herself. I don't know anybody else like her, right? I don't know anyone else who dresses like this lady. I don't know anyone else who sort of carries herself like this lady, and that shows up in a lot of different people. I remember watching a documentary a long time ago, and I forget what the lady's name is, but it's an older lady. She wears these huge glasses, right? And she has on these huge glasses, and it is just her. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter what people think about her. It doesn't really matter how people feel about the way that she dresses. And there's something very admirable, I feel, about living your life that way, because you can't please everybody. Everybody has their own life to live. So the best that we can do is just be happy and comfortable in ourselves. And I think for me, that is the draw, right? Again, now, as somebody who's into all kinds of witchy things, like, I appreciate the witchiness of it. So that don't bother me at all. But I think the thing that I really admire about this woman is just her, I don't want to say bravery, because she's just being herself, but just sort of her way of just being herself. So we're going to use her as a reference. And I've seen images of this woman when she was younger, and I was like, oh yeah, she was breaking hearts when she was a younger woman. So we want to channel that into this particular image. And because I know that people read her as very wicked and witchy and things like that, just based on her appearance, I do want to play that up in this. It's sort of, I don't know, there's something very mischievous about this woman. And so I want to, again, play that up in this particular image, because when people look at this card, I want them to feel sort of the heaviness again, the sort of suffocation of it, because it is so in your face. All right, so we're doing our best here. Let me turn on my sketch and make sure that I am getting this the way that I want it. And we'll go back to our hand reference. It's getting there. All right. So I do know that we have highlights in our nails, right? So we want to emphasize that. Yeah, there's something very admirable about just sort of going for it. I think that's something that I'm channeling in this particular image. I've only had one or two instances where, because it is so different, this particular deck, from what people are used to seeing, where the person who was sort of responding to it felt uncomfortable by that. That is okay. You know what I mean? But just because that person was uncomfortable doesn't mean that I have to sort of tailor the way that I approach this project. It just means that this project isn't for them, right? So same with this lady. Just because people are uncomfortable by her appearance, that just means that she's not for them. And that's all right, right? That's perfectly okay. So it looks, is it going to auto save? Okay, I thought it was going to auto save. So yeah, this project, for the most part, when I'm designing the cards, I am thinking sort of outside of the normal traditional imagery that we're used to seeing for certain card meanings. So I am trying to sort of push myself to go beyond those common interpretations. There are going to be instances where the images are going to look very close to the source material, but that's not sort of the goal. The aim is just to be as introspective, meaning being as personal about the work that I'm creating as I possibly can, because for me, this is a way for me to express and to share a lot of my own spiritual experiences, and I'm using this platform as a way to do it, meaning this particular tarot deck. Now, I don't think I'm super special. I don't think that I'm just like this one of a kind type of person. I feel like if there's something that I would like to see, if there are images that I connect to, then surely there are images, or there are other people who can connect to the same work, right? Or who want to see the same things. And for those who don't, we're just not in the same tribe, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. All right. So I think for now, we're going to give the fingers just a bit of a rest, just so that I can kind of start to add shadows and things into my heart cushion. I'm going to go back to that same chalk brush because I like the way that the texture looks, and I'm going to begin to add shadows. Now the shadows are going to help me emphasize the fact that she's sticking her nails in this particular heart, right? So yeah, this, I'm very, very much being, purposefully introspective when it comes to creating this deck. Now, of course, I am keeping also in consideration the fact that this is something to be intended for use. So I do keep in mind the new reader. That is very important because I don't want to be so ambiguous and so sort of to myself about it that the images are hard to read. But I also just feel like I'm not the only one who wants to see certain stuff. I just don't think that that's a thing, right? With all of the billions of people in the world. So I am sort of finding that balance between being very true and honest to what I would like to see, but also making it easy and approachable for the person who is picking this up as their first deck, or maybe they're just sort of not experts, you know what I mean? While also creating something that the expert can also enjoy as well. So that is the balance I feel of being in this sort of space of creating a tarot deck. I would also like to do a oracle at some point. This is me dreaming out loud. I have a lot of plans for things that I can sort of do to expand on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot universe. So I'm just enjoying the process right now. Again, I don't ever want to reach for perfection. I don't ever want to get to the space where I'm like, well, I'm just this perfect, only person who wants to see this, because no, I don't think so. I think that's a bit of an egotistical trap, right? I do believe that other people will find themselves in this picture, and so long as I'm being myself throughout it, not this picture, but just this deck project or whatever you want to call it, and I think just being sort of true to myself and true to what it is that I want to see will also call the people who connect and resonate with it. And so therein lies the balance. But I do keep in mind just the new reader, because I was that new reader at one point. So I picked up my first deck at 16, and I wish I had something like this. I think I create this really for that 16-year-old me. I wish I had something like this then, because I had picked up the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, which is what this deck is based on, and just looking at the imagery at that point in my life, I could not connect with it, right? I just did not see myself in it. And for me, as a new reader at that time, the images were very difficult to decipher. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm looking at. And to me, it just wasn't very approachable, right? Now, of course, I've come to appreciate the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It is a deck that I use currently quite often. It is, again, something that I have come to sort of value, again, as the source of this project, or sort of the blueprint for this project. But I know for a lot of new readers, that is not, they don't see themselves, right? Even when I got back into tarot, when I was ready to sort of read again, I was having a hard time seeing my own experience in that. Because even when we get into sort of decks that feature a lot of diversity, what would happen is I would find a lot of struggle, right? It would feel like, woe is me. It would feel like, that very dark, sort of heavy, trapped in old cycles and old thinking sort of feeling. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that for myself. Really didn't want that for the person that created it, to feel like they had to, lean into that. But everybody's experience is going to be different. So what I wanted to do was sort of lean into the possibility of what could be, right? We're not going to ignore what has been. We are not going to ignore the struggles that a lot of us face on a day-to-day basis, but I do want to sort of focus my attention on the possibilities of greatness beyond our struggles. And so that is sort of the basis of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Now, this looks real slouchy and sloppy, and that's okay. What I am doing is just sort of moving around these highlights and colors. Again, I am not reaching for perfection at all. I just want to lay in some depth, right? And then as I turn off my sketch, that'll kind of give me an idea of what this looks like. Let's deselect it so we can see it all together. So it's looking very textured, right? It doesn't quite look like a pillow yet, and that's going to come when we sort of smoothen out certain things and add our stitching and fabric and all of the bits and bops and all that. But for the time being, this looks good. I'm going to go back and select it again by hitting Control and just sort of, where we at? It's going to tap on it. There it is. And tapping on the layer, that allows me to select it, and then we can just kind of keep playing. Now again, this is all play to me at this point. This is all play. Nothing about this is perfect. Nothing about this is clean and clear, and that does sort of lend itself to the meaning of this card, right? Where you have those that suffering feeling. So it looks slouchy, it looks sloppy, and that's okay. That's perfectly okay. We just want to make sure that our shadows are where they need to be, our highlights are where they need to be, and we can just sort of move things around just using the smudge brush, not adding any color, just moving color around and going that way. So if there's something that you want to do, I say this quite a lot, if there is a project that you want to do, if there's a skill that you want to learn, if there's something that you want to sort of take a chance on, do it. Right? Just do it. I mean, if push comes to shove, worst comes to worst, at least you tried. But I would hate to get to a point, so I'll be 39 years old this year. I would hate to get to a point in my life where I'm a 60-year-old woman and I'm like, you know what, I wish I had done whatever. I wish I had traveled the world. I wish I had taken a chance on this. I wish I had taken this class. I wish I had done that when I was younger. Just do it, right? The thing that I'm learning is that nobody really knows exactly what they're doing. That is a fact. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just sort of figuring this out as we go. And so sometimes that involves taking a chance and just sort of betting on yourself. Now, what I'm doing now, just to sort of go back and share with you guys what's going on, is I'm now on the twine layer. So I'm just sort of tightening these up as well. And just paying attention to where I am, because again, this layer is on top of everything else. So we want to make sure that we don't interrupt too much of what we've already done. We can always go back and erase it because the layers are all separated. We don't have to paint anything back in. But I am just sort of tightening all of this up and cleaning it up so that I can begin to add details here as well. I don't think we're going to be here very long, and so if you like or if you would like to just work with me, right, as I work, you work, we all work together, join me on Wednesday. This Wednesday we're going to go a little bit earlier just to sort of try it out to see how I feel about the time, because I have not nailed down the time yet for the Bring Your Own Project streams. But if you would just like to sort of work as I work, we all listen to music together and enjoy each other and all of that, please join me Wednesday. I think I said it for 12:30, but it is scheduled. So if you see it, just make sure you hit the notification thing to notify me so that when it goes live, you can listen to it, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, driving and washing dishes or whatever it is that you're doing that day. Please be sure to join me that day. I like those. What those do for me, the co-working live streams do, is it sort of really structures the time for me to sit and work. Right? Because when I do these streams, of course we're explaining the process and doing all of that, so it does take a little bit longer. I do feel a little bit of the pressure of having to work live and also talk through it. I enjoy it, but there is a little bit of pressure that comes with it. But on those streams, it's nice because I'm setting aside usually about an hour and a half or so. Last time we went to close to 2 hours, but I'm just painting. I'm just working straight through until I feel like I need a break, right? And in that, I seem to be getting quite a lot done. I think we're working, and it ain't no thinking to it. We're working on the 3 of Pentacles these next couple weeks in that particular stream. And I think the last one I did was 1 hour and 50 minutes, and I would say a good 30% of the way through with that picture. And I'm like, that's saying a lot. I got the whole background done. I have I started working on one of the characters in it, so I get a lot of work done. So if you would like to join me while I work, you work, we can all get a whole bunch of work done. Please do. I am there, so if you see me there and you have any questions or anything like that, I'm always looking at the chat, so you guys can ask questions during that, and I'd be happy to answer them in the chat and chat with you. So I love those streams. Those are really nice. But this week is going to be a little bit earlier. I think, as I was sort of preparing to schedule that for an earlier time, I think what I'm probably going to do is have it around 1 o'clock after this, just sort of moving forward, because I think that would be a nice time for me. We'll see. We're still working out kinks and timing for that one. But I do enjoy it. So again, if you want to do like a co-working stream with me, I would love to have you. I'd love to see you there. I would love to know what you're working on. We had shout out to Draw Sketchbook, who let me know that she was studying anatomy, which is really awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. And if you are an artist and you're working on, what am I doing? If you are working on anything, any project, if you're studying something, I would love to know what it is exactly that you're doing, because you guys see me do a lot. And I just want to know what you're doing, right? So please don't be shy to share that with me. Whether you don't even have to be an artist, so I won't limit that to artists, but of course I have a soft spot for artists. So if you are working on something as an artist, I would love to know what it is that you're learning, what it is that you're working on, what project are you developing. I want to hear about it. If you are writing something, I would love to hear what your story is about. If you are taking beta readers, if you're writing something, you need somebody to read it, let me know. I love reading different stories and things like that. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so if you're doing that, I would love to learn about that. If you have a project that you are working on and you want to talk about it, right? You want to come on and share it and share the people. We're a small audience, but I would love to talk to you about it. Now, if you go back to this live panel in this channel, you zoom all the way down or scroll all the way down to the very, I think one of the like the third or fourth live stream. We did one with the deck creator IJ Richardson, who also has a podcast, Dots in Space Time, and we talked all about her deck and her process and, you know, her thinking and all of that. And so that was super duper interesting. So if you have something like that that you would like to share, I would love to have you on to interview you and to learn about what it is that you do, what you love, and what message it is that you would like to what message it is that you would like to share, as well as your experiences. I would love to have you on to do that. So I'm about stuck on this. I'll probably work on this for a little bit longer after this stream, but I think we're going to wrap it up here. Wednesday, come back and join me at 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That'll be 1:30 p.m. Eastern, and then I don't know the time zones after that, but just turn on your notifications and you'll see me as I go live. So if you're joining me live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here, and I thank you so much. I'm gonna get this together. I think I'll probably work on this for another hour or so, just sort of outside of live, to get it to where I would like for it to be. But again, if you have anything that you would like to come on and talk to me about, if you would like to go live with me, I would love to have you on. And then join me Wednesday. So until next Sunday, I will hope you guys have a goodness gracious of life. I hope you have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. And so until next time, peace.